Hi, in this demonstration, we're going to look at some actually audio recording and playback in iOS. And just to keep it simple and to keep it all kind of one thing, I'm going to show you how we can record and play back a file in the context of our Parts Room application. What I've done here is I've added a view controller that I'm going to push on top of this navigation controller from within the new part view controller. So let's look at a close-up of that. What I've done is I've added a label here that says you can record an audio description for this part after entering the information above. And then there's a check to see if we have a part number, a name, and a description. A part number, name, and a reorder quantity. What we're really looking for is the part number, because the part number is going to be the name of the file that we actually record into the documents directory. So the segue, however, needs to first check to see if we have that information. So this segue doesn't come from the record audio description button. It actually comes from the status bar of the new part view controller. But it's a push segue, and if we look at that and its properties, we can see that it has an ID of audio record and a style of push, and it's just going to push on top of our navigation controller. So in this new view controller, the title is going to be set to something informative like recording, and then this label we will set to the name of the part number, and then we have three buttons: record, stop, and playback. And I'll show you how that gets done. So let's first look at this interesting little segue and how we hook that up. So now in the adding view controller, which is where we're coming from, we've defined a recording controller, which is that view controller, and that's just going to be the segue's destination view controller and downcast to audio recording view controller. And this is exactly what we've done with these defines, say in parts list view controller, up to the main view controller and down to the other view controllers. We've done exactly the same thing. So now the next step, we have some new properties and methods. We have button record tapped is our only other method. So now let's look at that button record tapped. Remember, the segue is coming from the view controller itself and not from the button. So first thing we do is we check if the name, the number, and the reorder quantity are not equal to an empty string. And if they are not equal to that string, then we can call perform segue with identifier. Now, perform segue with identifier first calls prepare for segue as a delegate. And that we just check to see if the identifier is equal to the string audio record, and then we set the recording controller part number field, which we'll look at in a second, to the number, the part number text, and then we'll set the title to record ... Now, if we have one of these fields equal to an empty string, then we just alert out with the same message we alerted before. Part must have a part number, name, and reorder quantity. And then we delegate back to self, and the cancel button title is okay. And then we show the alert. So what we've got here is a trap to make sure that really we have a part number. But we'd like to have a complete part because it is likely that the user is just going to go ahead and add the part after they have done a recording for that part. So now let's look at this guy, audio recording view controller. We notice that this is just a simple UI view controller, but it adopts AV audio recorder delegate and AV audio player delegate. Now, AV audio recorder and AV audio player are both part of the AV Foundation framework. In order to use audio recording and playing with AV audio recorder and AV audio player, we must include the AV Foundation framework. And you can see that I have gone ahead and linked that binary library into our application. It's avfoundation.framework. And I've copied that or drug it down to the AV Foundation to the frameworks folder. Now, that's very important. The other thing that is very important when we work with this is that notice I have also imported abfoundation/abfoundation.h. And since this becomes part of the frameworks, we use the angle bracket notation rather than the quote notation to do this. So now let's look at properties here. We have a part number to hold that text field while it's being segued to. We have the text field itself. I've just called it file name. And then we also have a property outlet to a button for the record button, because I need to be able to get to that. The first time I press record, I'm going to go ahead and start recording, but I'm also going to change the button's text to pause. The next time, I'm just going to change it back to record. Now, when I press the stop button, if that button text is reading pause, I need to get back to that button and set it back to record. So that's why I need an outlet to that button. I have two properties here, an AV audio recorder and an AV audio player. AV recorder, AV player. And then I have three button handlers, button record, button stop, button playback. So this is very simple, and I have these properties wired up to their correct controls in the storyboard. So now let's look at the implementation of this. I've synthesized my properties. In ViewDidLoad, the work here of ViewDidLoad is to set up this recorder and its player. So the first thing I need to do is just go ahead and assign that label's text to the part number. That's we would do anywhere. But now to set up the recording, I need a URL to the place in the directory structure where I'm going to save the recording, and I need that URL to contain the file name. So what I do is I make a string with a format of an nsstring.m4a with the part number. We'll talk about file formats here in a second, but M4A is probably the easiest thing that we can do. CD quality audio, 2 channels, so forth. Now, the file path is just going to be the document directory last object, which is also the first object. It's object at index 0. We could do that. And then with the full file name, and we make an array out of that, and then we make an NSURL. The output URL is file URL with path components, and we can take those directly out of that file path array. So this is a simple way to make a URL. Next thing we need to do is set up an audio session. Now, when we use the AV Foundation framework, it gives us a shared instance of an audio session, and this just happens at the beginning of your application. So we get that shared instance, and we just call it record session. And then we set the category on that to AV audio session category play and record with a nil error. Now, in a production application, of course, we would trap these errors and get them back and take a look at them and so on and so forth. Now, the settings for an audio session are kept in a dictionary. So we create a mutable dictionary. I'm just calling it record dictionary. And it's just a regular mutable dictionary. And then we add 3 things to it here. We set the M4A format with some constants. Constant audio format, MPEG 4AAC. For the key, format ID key. We set the sample rate likewise, and we set the number of channels to 2 for that key. Next thing we do is we ready the recorder to record. So AV recorder, we set that property up. This probably should be self.AV recorder. I'm sorry about that, but it will work. We allocate it and we initialize it with the URL, the recording sessions, settings, and an error of nil. Again, production code will require us to trap and handle these errors. And then we set its delegate to self. And then we set metering enabled to yes, and then we prepare to record. Now, I'm glossing over a lot of detail here, as you can figure out. For full details, you need to read the documentation for the AV Foundation framework. But what I'm doing here is doing the simplest possible way to go ahead and record and play back audio to see how it works. When we click the recording button, the first thing we want to do is see if the player is playing. And if the player is playing, we want to stop it. So we just do it very simply. If avplayer.playing, avplayer stop. It's very simple to do that. Now, playing, pause, stop, these are things that we can use in both a player and a recorder. If we're not already recording, then we check, do we get that shared session back? I'm calling it recording session. And we set it active, and we start recording by calling record on the AV recorder. And then we set the title on the button. We enabled pause state for the button. So we set the title on the button to pause for UI control state normal. Now, if we are recording, then we want to pause the recording. So we call pause on the recorder, and we set the title back to record. Really simple. Stop, we want to stop the recorder, and then get that session again and set it active. And then set the title of the recording button back to record by going into the property, the IB outlet property for that button, and setting its title for UI control state normal. Playback button, the only thing we need to check with playback, we've got the file name, it's the URL, and it's a property of AV recorder. So that file name is easy to find. The only thing we want to do is we don't want to play if we're recording. So if not recorder recording, then we can play it back. So the AV player is an AV audio player initialized with the contents of the URL at that AV recorder's URL. In other words, the file we have recorded with an error of nil. Again, caveat emptor, we would check these errors in production code. We set its delegate to self, and then we play the file. So that's it. That's all we have to do. It looks like there's a lot of code in here, but really it's mostly comments. So look at this code, and this will give you a simple way to both record and play back audio. Recording and playing back video is very similar. So remember the AV Foundation framework. And it's really not very hard to do at all. Now, I did want to run this for a demo. And if we're running in the simulator, it will use the settings for recording, the microphone in other words, on your laptop or desktop, whatever. So for the simulator, for audio, it's very nice. So we want to get into this, so we'll just add a new part. And remember that in order to record, we need a part number, name, and reorder quantity. So we'll check that first. And it says, no, we must have a part number, name, and reorder quantity. So let's just go ahead and provide that. PN003, the name, third part. And then the reorder quantity, let's just put 45. Doesn't really matter. And then we're going to record an audio description for this. So now we see the record interface. So now I'm just going to start recording. This is the third part, and this is an audio description of that part. So now I've recorded that file, and now if I play it back, you may be able to hear it. This is the third part, and this is an audio description of that part. So this is very cool. Now, in this application, I haven't really finished it. I've just shown you how to get the recording in there, but I haven't really done anything with the database. Now, what we would do in production, if we really wanted to include this as part of our PartStream application, what we would do is make a new field in the catalog table and just house the file name in that field. And then we could run back and play that back wherever we wanted to within the catalog interface of our application. Thank you very much.